I am Sarah Norris, and I am presenting my action research project on the educational effects of mindfulness in the high school students in the beginning choral classroom. This study was performed at Mission Viejo High School in Mission Viejo in Orange County, California. For a little background about our school, Mission Viejo is comprised of 609 freshmen, 603 sophomores, 618 juniors, and 577 seniors. Our population is 56% white Caucasian, 28% Hispanic, 9% Asian, 2% African American, and 1% other. 52% of our students are male, 48% of our students are female, and of our student body, 20% are on the free and reduced lunch program. The problem that we see in education today is that, by and large, students lack the ability to maintain focus on a given task during an extended period of time. They get frustrated and distracted mainly by their cell phones. The Pew Research Center in 2018 did a study during which they found that 72% of young adults ages 13 to 17 use their cell phones during classroom instruction. And 32% of those students claim that their cell phone is the main point of distraction during the school day. Young adults of between 13 to 17 state that while on the phone, 54% of their time is spent engaged in social media actions. And parents of 13 to 17-year-olds state that their students are distracted by their phones during simple conversations. When polling 13 to 17-year-olds about their digital addiction, many of them indicated that they felt anxiety and loneliness and anger when found without their cell phones, while only 9% of youths experienced positive feelings without their electronic devices. Instant gratification of social acceptance can directly impact a student's anxiety, in addition to reducing their classroom focus, distracting from educational instruction. Our classroom demographic breakdown is such that, the high school choral classroom is typically filled with a mix of genders and a mix of ages and ability level. This creates an environment where you have a lot of distracting elements just by itself, let alone the fact that people bring in their classroom, their cell phones, and bring in those extra distractions. The question I proposed for this study was, do students experience a more focused engagement in a choral rehearsal and therefore retain more information when mindfulness is a core component in the classroom? The results of this study are based on 2 surveys, 3 music theory assignments, and 2 part singing tests, as well as observations and other surveys. Mindfulness can be defined as a meditative practice that cultivates present moment awareness and attention, a non-judgmental stance, intentional observation, and one's thoughts, heightened sense of experience and self-awareness, which all lead to feelings of equanimity rather than reactivity. The idea is that we recognize our feelings, recognize what we're experiencing without judging those experiences, without judging our feelings. Dr. Brown, in her 2010 book, The Gifts of Imperfection, defined mindfulness as taking a balanced approach to negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. Mindfulness requires that we not over-identify with thoughts and feelings to avoid getting caught up or swept away by that negativity. An expansion of mindfulness research dates back to 1979 when Dr. John Kabat-Zinn of the University of Massachusetts founded MBSR, or Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, to assist patients with their pain management with the use of mindfulness practices. Combined with the use of mindfulness meditation, body awareness, and yoga to achieve a calming mindful status, these have shown beneficial results, which included stress reduction, relaxation, and an improved quality of life. The idea is that students can learn these methods to focus on their breathing or whatever task they are doing in the moment, and to clear their minds of distractions. A Garrison Institute report in 2004 suggested that many schools adopt mindfulness approaches because the techniques are easy to learn and may help students become more responsive, calm, and focused while experiencing less stress and distractions. According to Hazel in 2011, the benefits of mindfulness can be associated with two complementing but unique components. The first positive outcome deals directly with the focus on immediate experiences, whereas the second involves approaching one's experiences with an orientation of curiosity, openness, and acceptance, regardless of their balance or desirability. Studies have shown that short, repetitious mindful activities can improve a subject's focus, thereby providing them with the ability to achieve a flow post-actions. Flow, byproduct of mindfulness practices, where a person's mental state of operation is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. In our district, we have partnered with Dr. Romer with Mission Hospital. He manages the adolescent mental health and psychiatric emergency triage services at Mission Hospital, and he advocates for mindfulness practices in our local schools. He has lectured at various staff development meetings, and he lectures on the need for mindfulness in the Saddleback Valley Unified School District. He is from Azusa Pacific University and has been a major pioneer with the local schools for improved academic focus by way of mindful meditation. Our guidance department sends out Mindful Monday emails reminding us of various ways to be mindful, not only in our teaching, but how to help us encourage our students to be mindful in their actions as well. Another fellow teacher on campus, Shane Cost, has even developed a mindful meditation Thursday during his tutorials. He invites students to come in and they meditate every Thursday morning. This enables them to clear their minds of the distractions of the day and just be present. He helps these students and other teachers focus and to enrich their educational skills and hone in their skills through meditation. My hypothesis for this project was that the use of mindfulness practices in the classroom as a tool to increase focus, improve body language, and increase teaming ability has grown in popularity in recent years. So incorporating mindfulness practices into the classroom would help students develop their skills and coping mechanisms, and will foster their learning and help them to achieve their greatest potential. According to Droutman, Reed, and Semple in 2016, mindfulness classrooms create a more positive learning environment in which students are primed and ready to pay attention, and consequently better prepared to learn. As Epstein told us in 2002, despite strong agreement on the importance of parent involvement, most schools, districts, and states still need help in developing comprehensive programs at school, family, and community partnerships. The way schools care about children is reflected in the way schools care about children's families. If educators view children simply as students, they are likely to see the family as a separate unit from the school. That is, the family is expected to do its job and leave the education to the schools. If educators view students as children, they are likely to see both the family and the community as partners with the school in the children's education and development. Parents then recognize their shared interest in and responsibilities for children, and they work together to create better programs and opportunities for the students. Mindful Music Moments was a collaboration between City Silence, the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and Cincinnati Opera. This combines classical music and mindfulness to calm and focus the mind while creating a lasting relationship with music. Every school morning, students and faculty listen to an excerpt of classical music together over the public address system. Each day, there is a prompt to consider while listening to the music, either a music literacy prompt, can you hear where the string instruments begin? Or a mindfulness prompt, can you feel the tempo of your own breath and how that compares to the tempo of the music? Studies and research have shown that music, which is organized auditory information, helps organize the mind that attends to it, and therefore reduces psychic entropy, or the disorder we experience when random information interferes with goals. Listening to music wards off boredom and anxiety, and when seriously attended to, it can induce flow experiences. To incorporate mindfulness in my classroom, I had each morning begin with a mindful music moment. My students came to the classroom, sat, closed their eyes, and listened to a 5-minute piece of either choral or instrumental music. I also incorporated things such as teaming. The addition of mindfulness practices, teaming, and body language has enhanced the classroom setting, according to the Harvard University School of Business. Considered the engine of organizational learning, teaming is teamwork on the fly. It is largely determined by the mindset and practices of teamwork, not by the design and structures of effective teams. I also talked a lot about body language. How we carry ourselves affects how we learn and how we take in information. Studies validate the notion that body language can reduce feelings of anxiety, angry hostility, depression, self-consciousness, impulsiveness, and volatility, while at the same time increasing different variations on self-esteem. Amy Cuddy, a champion of the power pose, connects the physical benefits of teaming traits with body language and how it can affect performances as a derivative of mindfulness. Aspects of teaming and conscious body language have become positive byproducts of mindfulness practices. Flow is a byproduct of mindfulness practices where a person's mental state of operation is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement and enjoyment in the process of the activity. This is a state of, that mindful participants strive to achieve. The methods of this study incorporated surveys. I surveyed my students in the sense of 18 mentally strong traits. And I also tested them on their knowledge of music theory with the note name speed test, writing intervals, and recognition and writing major scales and key signatures. I also tested their knowledge and preparedness on a mass choir song called Celtic Silent Night by Patrick Tierney. This is a song that is taught to all choirs in the program, and so that helped with the experimental group versus the control group. By exposing the notation of mindfulness and the validated benefits that accompany repeated mindfulness exercises to the beginning high school choir class, the students were allowed to experience a unique method to enhance classroom learning. Repeating mindfulness actions will instill the required cultural mindset needed to experience the benefits of these teachings. Based on the 18 mentally strong traits evaluation, the research had determined that in a short amount of time, improvements on the classroom's maturity level had improved, as well as their ability to return to a focused state once distractions pulled them from the overall educational experience happening during the class period. Slight improvements were noticed with questions pertaining to self-regulation and self-motivation and personal ownership, as well as significant growth in classroom respect and personal educational focus. It was also observed by the researcher that as the weeks progressed and the routine of mindfulness music combined with music education was being accepted, the students began to foster a stronger bond of camaraderie with one another. Students had become more comfortable with their surroundings, which led to a better collaborative educational environment that enabled the class as a whole to return to an educational focus when instruction became diverted. The experimental choir showed an overall 4% increase in the mindfulness assessment as the collective bodies rose from an average of 61 or 67% to a 65 or 72%. Mindful awareness status. Additionally, I found that the median number for both survey samples rose from a score of 61 to a post score of 67. Although the high and lower and outlier score of 83 remained both pre and post study, the lower outlier score significantly rose from 36 before the study to that of 46 after the study. Variables in the collection could be influenced based on the day of the week. For instance, the mass survey was first administered on a Monday at the beginning of the school week, and then the last one was administered on a Friday. Based on the results of the personal assessment, the students indicated that the mindfulness practice not only helped focus class time on the educational aspects of the class, but also assisted with their personal beliefs that mindfulness had helped them become a better team member when learning their parts of the music. Collectively, the students felt that the mindfulness exercises did little for the current collection of students, but results differed based on age and experience. The results indicated that freshmen who were new to the program didn't feel that mindfulness really helped much. This was indicated by an average score of 29. In contrast, sophomores through senior students, especially those returning to the program from previous years of participation, found that the implementation of mindfulness exercises assisted in propelling the level of education forward. This was determined based on the fact that each grade average score equaled 32, which was a 3-point increase over their freshman classmates. The first quiz administered was focused on naming the notes of a grand staff. Overall, understanding and educational retention for the experimental choir were considered high, and the average class score being 45 out of 50, or 90%. Only 2 students failed this test, with 40% of the students receiving perfect score, and a median score for the class being 49 out of 50. In contrast, the control choir averaged a 49 out of 50, or 95% total score on the same assignment, with no students failing. The second quiz administered was the Writing Intervals Music Theory Evaluation, where comprehension of musical intervals was high in both choirs. The experimental choir produced an average score of 31 out of 36, or 86%, and a median score of 35. A total of 4 students failed the assessment, with results well below 50%. In contrast, the control choir saw high results in the average score being 35 out of 36, or 97%, and only 1 student failing the evaluation. The final quiz administered in evaluating the validity of mindfulness practices concerned educational music theory retention was the Major Scales and Key Signatures quiz. showing the lowest educational retention of the 3 evaluation exams. The experimental choir averaged 6 out of 10, or 60%, with the median score of 8 and 13 students failing. Similarly, the control choir saw a reduced success rate in comparison to the previous evaluations. The control choir experienced an average score of 8 out of 10, or 80%, with 2 students failing. The students were also tested in small groups to assess their vocal progress within a 1-day span. Both choirs were able to achieve vocal retention through measure 31 of the text, with experimental group performing all 4 voice parts, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and the control choir performing only 2 parts, soprano and alto, with piano part assistants to fulfill the remaining parts, due to the absence of men within the group. All observations had been made with the experimental choir showed an added expression in comparison with the control choir. This reinforced previous findings, which stated mindfulness has been shown to increase the aesthetic response for university students listening to music, as Diaz told us in 2011. Based on the results of the Action Research Project, although there are no definitive benefits in helping students retain educational instruction when it came to administering music theory assessments, it is clear that mindfulness exercises did yield an improved classroom environment, allowing for a more positive educational experience for all classroom participants, and addressing the alleviation or reduction of performance anxiety, as Falter noted in 2016. This improved musical comprehension also allowed students to gain confidence in his or her musical part for each song, thus improving their ability of teaming when put into musical leadership situations. An observation had been made that the experimental choir showed added expression in comparison with the control choir. Student evaluations of the mindfulness instruction yielded positive results, the overall perception of the mindful exercises being a positive addition to the daily classroom routine. In contrast to the clear benefits of this action research, I did not observe that there were the same results that showed the mindfulness yielded total success. The experimental choir consisted of a large number of freshmen, with no choral music experience. Although many students accepted the overall mindfulness instruction with great success, some were unable to accept the benefits and resisted total buy-in to the mindfulness instruction. This may be attributed to a reduced maturity level in younger students, especially knowing that the overall gender makeup of freshmen in the experimental choir consisted largely of boys. According to Dr. Marcus Kaiser of the Newcastle University, studies have shown that the brain does a lot of reorganizing during puberty, but it was rather unexpected to find that these changes were starting much earlier in girls in comparison with boys. Around 10 to 12, you start to see a lot of activity in the brains of girls as this pruning takes place, but it's not until between 15 to 20 for boys, as we learned in 2013. This, of course, skews the mindfulness data by creating outliers. Additionally, the academic content in which I educated the classroom was purely focused on music theory, a subject new to the majority of the classroom. Even though mindfulness practices are intended to increase a person's ability to understand the educational content that is being instructed, the fact that everything was completely new still threw some of that off. This is evident when comparing the academic results of the experimental choir with those to the control choir. This could also be attributed to the maturity level of each beginning choir. The experimental group was made up of 56% female and 44% male, whereas the control choir was 100% female. Similar to previous studies like Diaz in 2011, the research I expect that an increased mindfulness acceptance and would benefit with an elongated exposure to mindfulness exercises. Mindfulness exercise routines on a prolonged period of time would yield, I believe, a higher level of acceptance. By comparing classrooms with similar makeup in gender, age, as well as education level, rather than solely based on educational level, I feel that that could have added some more validity to the results as well. An expanded reach will also further enhance the notion that you bring people together who are not only diverse in expertise, but also are employed by different organizations, fueling teaming. The intent of this study was to not only use mindfulness practices inside the classroom, but to also implement the use of mindfulness exercises prior to choral performances. The intent here is to focus the students on the performance rather than the outside distractions in order to enhance the quality of that performance. An expanded study into mindfulness counteracting the effects of stage fright while singing in a choral environment, which Amy Cuddy expresses as a feeling where the muscles that produce sound seize, causing your voice to come out thin and tight, nothing like what you are imagining in your head or practice prior to the performance. So incorporating mindfulness right before walking out on stage will help my students to be aware of what they're doing and how they're supposed to project, rather than being scared about the audience staring at them. And I plan to partner mindfulness actions with those who are doing mindfulness meditation elsewhere on campus, thus exposing a larger portion of the student body to the educational values that mindfulness offers. Further expansion of mindfulness exercises to all grade levels would be recommended to see if total immersion would yield a higher acceptance rate, thereby improve classroom focus and teaming. This recommendation should counteract maturity level variances, which had been stated by Napton when observing further brain development in female young adults versus their same age counterpart in males. This process of incorporating mindfulness into my classroom was also enhanced by reading Brown's text, "The Gifts of Imperfection." We were able to think about who we are as educators and who we are as teachers, and how we incorporate our faith into our teaching. Tupper in 2017 also discussed the religious acceptance of meditation as a need to focus our wandering minds. The richness of experience, the exquisite beauty of the universe, the need of someone in pain, even the voice of God can get lost in the noise of our unfocused thoughts. Using mindfulness to help focus in on our Creator and on our faith will help us as we continue to grow as teachers and as humans. One of my favorite verses is from Psalms. "Test me, Lord, and try me. Examine my heart and my mind. For I have always been mindful of your unfailing love and have lived in reliance on your faithfulness." Another one of my favorite verses from Isaiah, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous hand." And then of course, John 4:19, "We love because he first loved us." This course has inspired me to think creatively about how I teach choral music and music in general.